Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's update on Tropical Storm Lee. So, Tropical Storm Lee has formed in the central main development region of the Atlantic Basin, and as of 5 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time, Tuesday, September the 5th, Tropical Storm Lee has maximum sustained winds of 45 miles per hour, a minimum central pressure of 1,005 millibars, and west-northwesterly movement at 16 miles per hour. Looking at the National Hurricane Center's official cone for Tropical Storm Lee, Lee is expected to remain a tropical storm through Wednesday afternoon, strengthen to a hurricane by early Thursday morning, and become a major hurricane by Friday afternoon. And as of right now, the cone keeps it to the northeast of the Lessar Antilles, although the southwestern portion of the cone brings it very close to areas like Anguilla and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So looking at the interactive cone and satellite imagery through Zoom Earth. Looking at Tropical Storm Lee, 45 mile per hour tropical storm as of 7 p.m. Central American Time, September the 5th. And as we go into 1 a.m. tonight, Lee is expected to quickly strengthen to a 60 mile per hour tropical storm. By Wednesday, 1 p.m. Central Time, a 70 mile per hour tropical storm. By Thursday, 1 a.m., an 80 mile per hour Category 1 hurricane moving to the west-northwest. Thursday, 1 p.m. Central Time, 90 mile per hour Category 1 hurricane moving to the west-northwest. Friday, 1 a.m. Central Time, a 105 mile per hour Category 2 hurricane moving to the west-northwest. Friday, 1 p.m. Central Time, a 125 mile per hour Category 3 major hurricane moving to the west-northwest. Saturday, 1 p.m. Central Time, a 140 mile per hour Category 4 major hurricane about 200 miles to the northeast of Anguilla. And then by Sunday, 1 p.m. Central American Time, a 145 mile per hour Category 4 major hurricane curving about 300 miles northeast of Puerto Rico. So if you live in areas especially like Antigua, Bermuda, Anguilla, U.S. Virgin Islands, even Puerto Rico, British Virgin Islands, keep a close eye on Lee, as any shifts to the southwest in the track could bring some serious impacts to these islands. Looking at the latest spaghetti model plots for Tropical Storm Lee, Tropical Storm Lee is expected to make a close passage to areas like Anguilla, St. Martin, and Antigua and Barbuda, as well as the U.S. Virgin Islands in the next 96 to 120 hours. However, thankfully, all of the models keep Lee well to the northeast of the Lessar Antilles as of this evening. So, as of this evening, the majority of the impacts are expected to miss the Lessar Antilles to the northeast, although this is close enough to likely bring some tropical storm force winds and some rain bands to the islands. Looking at the intensity model guidance now, this is concerning. Nearly the majority of the models are taking Tropical Storm Lee to a Category 4 hurricane in the next 3 to 6 days, and we even have a couple of models taking Lee to a Category 5 hurricane. So this is going to be a very powerful storm, regardless of whether it impacts any land or not. Now looking at the 18Z run of the GFS model, here's Tropical Storm Lee in the main development region, and then is expected to quickly intensify to a hurricane by Thursday. Going into Friday and Saturday, we see Lee as a major hurricane with 953 millibars approaching the northeastern Lessar Antilles, and then by Sunday, Saturday evening, Sunday morning, could be seeing some rain bands impacting areas like Anguilla, Antigua, Barbuda, St. Martin, as well as Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Going into Sunday, we see a monster Category 4 hurricane, near Category 5 hurricane in the GFS model by Monday, September the 11th, about 300 miles north of Puerto Rico, and going into Monday, this is when we could see a Category 5 hurricane in the west central Atlantic, about 500 miles east of the Turks and Caicos and Bahamas. Going into Tuesday and Wednesday, we see a trough from moving through the northeast pick up Lee as a major hurricane, Category 4, move between Bermuda and the East Coast by Thursday, and then we could potentially see a monster superstorm, extratropical cyclone, or Category 3 hurricane impacting the Northeast or Atlantic Canada by Friday, September the 15th. So if you live in Bermuda or the Northeast and Atlantic Canada, make sure you're really paying attention to Lee as well around the Thursday, September the 14th, Friday, September the 15th time frame. So looking at the 12Z run of the European model is a little bit weaker on Lee, so I don't think the European is having a great handle on it, as it is initializing Lee as weaker than it is. However, the European model still brings Lee as a compact major hurricane by Sunday, with most of the impacts missing the northern Lessar Antilles, and then going into Monday, the European model then explodes Lee into a Category 4, maybe Category 5 hurricane. Now, this is a Category 5 hurricane with 928 millibars possible by a Tuesday afternoon, about 200 miles north of Puerto Rico. And then the European model begins to move Lee towards Bermuda by Friday. If you live in Bermuda especially, you need to be really paying attention to Lee, as Lee could be bringing major impacts to Bermuda, and then eventually, down the line, keep an eye in the Northeast and Atlantic Canada. And looking at the Canadian model, the 0Z run shows a similar scenario to the Euro, with a compact Category 3 or 4 hurricane north of Anguilla, Antigua, Barbuda, and St. Martin by Monday, and then going into Wednesday, moving to the north of Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and then the Canadian brings it close to the Turks and Caicos by Thursday, and then this is when the model run ends. So Lee, I would say if you live anywhere in the northern Lesser Antilles, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, the Turks and Caicos, Bahamas, especially Bermuda, as well as the Northeast US and Atlantic Canada, make sure you're keeping a really close eye on Tropical Storm Lee, as this is expected to become a powerful monster hurricane. Category 4, Category 5 is possible, and could be bringing major impacts if it moves closer to the Antilles, Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, Caicos, Turks and Caicos, Bermuda, or the Northeast and Atlantic Canada. I'll continue to provide updates on Lee as the days progress. Please stay safe. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful evening, my friends.